Robert Johnson is considered the king of the Delta blues. He's also considered the father of rock and roll. It is very significant that Johnson would be considered the father of rock and roll, as it is alleged that he had sold his soul to Satan in Clarksdale, Mississippi, in exchange for guitar playing abilities and worldwide fame. It was after Johnson made his alleged pact with Satan that he became the king of the Delta blues. Blues master B.B. King said, quote, "As a musician, Robert Johnson had it all."
I think he's the greatest folk blues guitar player that ever lived, and the greatest singer, the greatest writer.
You know, you think you were getting a handle on playing the blues, and then to hear Johnson, you say, whoa, there's a long way to go yet.
It's still the most powerful cry that I think you can find in music of the human voice.
Blues master and Johnson's mentor, Son House, said of him before Johnson's transformation, "He'd sit at our feet and played during the break, and such another racket you've never heard." Son House said he made the audiences mad with his racket. Son House went on to say of Johnson before he made his alleged pact with Satan that he was a talentless and even an irritating guitar player.
But he followed me and Willie around on Saturday night, Willie Brown. And every time we stopped for rest and sit there, little guitar over in the corner or something and go out to catch air, get the guitar and be trying to play it and be just noising the people, And the folks would come out and say, "Why don't some of y'all go in there and meet that boy, get that thing down, he running us crazy." Finally he left, he run off from his father and mother. And he went over in Arkansas someplace. Well, he was gone about 6 to 8 months.
It was during this period of 6 to 8 months that it is said that he made his pact with Satan on the crossroads of Highway 49 and 61 in Clarksdale, Mississippi. It was at these crossroads where the legendary experiences of Johnson trading in his eternal soul for temporary fame was said to have taken place in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Well, they say he sold himself to the devil, and that's what they say.
I heard a lot of people say that he sold himself to the devil, went to the crossroads and all that.
After Johnson's alleged pact with Satan, everything changed as Johnson went from being the worst blues guitarist in a matter of months to the best. Some musicians who knew Johnson claimed that Johnson himself admitted that he sold his soul to Satan.
He said he done that, went to the crossroads.
I was up this morning.
Son House said that when Johnson returned after 6 to 8 months, everything changed as Johnson was transformed almost before their very eyes.
Then he come back. When he come back, me and Willie Brown was playing out there, and he walked in. He said, can I hit a little tune? I said, "Nah, don't come back with that, Robert." I said, the people don't want to hear that racket. He said, let them say what they want to say. I want you to see what I learned.
Son House said when he finished, all of our mouths were standing open. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Son House declared emphatically, quote, "He sold his soul to the devil to play like that." The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has stated that Robert Johnson's songs are, quote, "the bedrock upon which modern blues and rock and roll were built." He's not only declared to be the father of rock and roll, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame says that Robert Johnson stands at the crossroads of American music, much as a popular folk legend has it. He once stood at Mississippi Crossroads and sold his soul to the devil in exchange for guitar-playing powers. Incredibly, Robert Johnson went from a guitarist who couldn't play a lick in a matter of months to a guitarist who, like a medium, didn't even have to practice as he channeled music from the spirit world at will.
I never seen him have to practice anything like that. Never seen him sit down and learn a song. He already knew it. Once he attempted to play it, he knew it. He had a built-in computer. Everything he heard was there. All he had to do was punch the button.
Whether or not the crossroads of Highway 49 and 61 are the exact place that Robert Johnson sold his soul, we cannot know for sure. But one thing is clear, Johnson had indeed given his soul to Satan. This is brought out in his own lyrics, which testify to this.
Early this morning, he knocked upon my door. And I said, "Hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go." by side. Me and the devil, ooh, were walking side by side. I'm going to beat my woman until I get sad.
Robert Johnson had a genuine fear of Satan coming to collect his soul, which is vividly recounted in songs like Hellhound, On My Trail.
I got to keep moving, I got to keep moving, and the chain keeps on wearing me. The hellhound on my trail.
Selling One's Soul to Satan is a thread that runs through the history of rock and roll from Robert Johnson until present. Bob Dylan sings a takeoff on this theme on Highway 49, and Eric Clapton sings Crossroads, which seems to be a lament for having once sold one's soul. Ginger Baker, formerly of Clapton's group Cream, says of Cream, quote, "It happens to us quite often. It feels as though I'm not playing my instrument. Something else is playing it, and that same thing is playing all three of our instruments. That's what I mean when I say it's frightening sometimes. Maybe we'll all play the same phrase out of nowhere. It happens very often with us." Robert Plant, lead singer of the now defunct Led Zeppelin, one of the biggest bands of all time, said in an interview that he possessed a container of dirt taken from the crossroads of Highway 49 and 61. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page's last album together was appropriately called Walking into Clarksdale. Incredibly, the title cut is about meeting a hellhound from hell on Highway 49 in a burnt-out motel.
And I see 12 white horses here walking the line, moving east across that river bridge on Highway 49. And standing in the shadows of a burned down motel, the king of commerce, Mississippi, waiting with his hound from hell. Stranger and the crossroads, believe I've seen his face before. Don't cry for me.
Nearly half a century after the advent of rock music, VH1 made the stunning admission that it was through the innocent looks of Bill Haley that rock music was able to slip through the parental radar like a Trojan horse.
Even by 50s standards, the singer looked like your uncle, which is why Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock could slip under parental radar. Mock his spit curl if you will, but Bill Haley was the Trojan horse of rock and roll.
Like the legendary Trojan horse that was used to wipe out the city of Troy in ancient days, so in 1957 when Bill Haley and other rock stars went on tour, the Trojan horse of rock music was used to incite riots worldwide. After witnessing the diabolical carnage that the Trojan horse of rock music was having in society, many took an active stand against its subversive and destructive influences.
You broke my will, but what a thrill. Great balls of fire.
Jerry Lee Lewis was the only rock star in the 1950s besides that of Little Richard, who threatened to knock Elvis Presley as a king of rock and roll off of his throne. Jerry Lee Lewis, like Little Richard and Elvis Presley, acknowledged that he was being used by spirit beings. Lewis was keenly aware that Satan was using him to lead his fans to hell. In fact, we have actual audio recordings of Lewis arguing with Sam Phillips during the recording sessions for Great Balls of Fire at Sun Studios, where Elvis Presley also recorded.
How can the devil save souls? What are you talking about? Man, the devil in me. I didn't hell, I did Christian. So I don't care. It ain't what you believe. It's what's written in the Bible.
Well, wait a minute.
And it's what is there, Mr. Phillips.
No.
It ain't what you believe, it's just what's there. If it's not what you believe, then how do you interpret the Bible? H-E-L-L.
In a bizarre exchange, Jerry Lee Lewis confessed to Sam Phillips that he was possessed by the devil and on his way to hell. Several years later, Lewis continues to maintain that it's a fact that he's on his way to hell, and he states that it worries me. Lewis states of his fear of going to hell because of his continued service to Satan that, quote, "I live with it every minute of every day of my life."
A lot of times he feels like he's working for the wrong side, you know, that he's playing the devil's music.
Little Richard, who is one of the big three of the 1950s along with Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley, also recognized Satan's hand in his success. Little Richard stated, quote, "Some rock and roll groups stand around in a circle and drink cups of blood. Some get on their knees and pray to the devil." Like Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard recognized that he was a pawn being used by Satan to lead his fans to hell. Little Richard said of the power that Satan was wielding through him and his bandmates, quote, "I was directed and commanded by another power, the power of darkness, the power of the devil, Satan. We must realize that there is a force that is fighting against us in this world. The devil is controlling our minds, directing our lives." Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys said of himself and the other Beach Boys, quote, "We were doing witchcraft, trying to make witchcraft music," end quote. Is it possible that Brian Wilson, the so-called musical genius behind the Beach Boys' music, was really being used by demonic forces like so many other rock stars? In terms akin to classical demonic possession, Rolling Stone magazine reported of Wilson, quote, "Brian Wilson hears voices. They talk to him. They distract him, frighten him, confuse him. Right now, as the creative genius behind the Beach Boys' classic surf rock sound, sits for an interview in his darkened living room, the Pacific crashing loudly outside his $1 million home. The voices are calling. His eyes roll toward the ceiling. They've gone blank. His brow is furrowed with thick worry lines. He is silent, gone." Rolling Stone magazine went on to report, quote, "He looks up, jerks his head back and forth for a few seconds, as if physically shaking away the voices." I wish they all could be California. Warner Brothers Records president Larry Warnker claims to have encountered at least 5 different entities that use Brian Wilson's body as their home. He said, quote, "There are a lot of different people there," says Warnker. Quote, "I've met 5 different people," end quote. It is apparent that Brian Wilson received many incredible songs from the spirit beings that have possessed him.
There's like this message that they're getting that nobody else tunes into. Some frequency that, we're just not able to tune into that they hear.
Does it ever get annoying, like when you're trying to go to sleep? Like, shut up.
Yeah, I have that all the time.
Really?
Please stop.
In my room. Wilson, who opened himself up to many demonic forces, stated, quote, "We were doing witchcraft. I got a little too much into this tape called Fire. Then a place down the street burned down the same day we did the song." Wilson simply communicated music the evil spirits were giving to him through the Beach Boys. Rock journalist Nick Kent wrote of these voices inside his head. They weren't saying anything too distinct yet, just making this dark, ghostly murmuring sound back there in the lower recesses of his brain. He stated, quote, "At one session for Heroes and Villains, he tried to capture this latest ghoulish sound, taking up squatters' rights in his head. It was the scariest sound of anything he'd created for Smile. But it wasn't as scary as the voices in his head were starting to insinuate. When Wilson felt uninspired, he would state, quote, "I can't sing. I can't get those voices anymore." These demonic beings that would once use Wilson as a puppet would later ridicule him by stating, quote, "You're gonna get it, you mother blank." All the voices in his head now interrupting his thoughts, forever muttering, quote, "You're finished, you're washed up, you've lost the plot, blank, and you've lost your mind. You played with God and messed with forces that can only destroy you." These demonic beings, however, were not the only satanic forces that the Beach Boys were being influenced by. The Beach Boys were also influenced by the music of none other than Charles Manson.
Because when I fell out of this penitentiary and I was playing my music, you, Neil Diamond, Buffalo Springfield, and Beach Boys, all them guys came to me. They copied and stole from me and took it down and put it in whatever they did. You dig?
Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys allowed Charles Manson and his family to live with him in his mansion. Wilson said his friend Charles Manson was like the devil, and Wilson called him the Wizard. Dennis Wilson said, quote, "The Wizard is Charlie Manson, who is a friend of mine, who thinks he is God and the devil. He sings, plays, and writes poetry, and may be another artist for Brother Records." Dennis Wilson gave Charles Manson one of his gold records that Manson used to barter to get onto a ranch that would be used for a while as the Manson family headquarters. The Beach Boys actually covered Charles Manson's song called "Cease to Exist" and changed the words to "Cease to Resist." They ended up putting this song on their 2020 album and called it "Never Learn Not to Love." The Beach Boys' so-called never-ending summer was really a journey to the depths of Satan's heart. The Beach Boys took the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on tour with them to give veritable lectures wherein he was given a platform to initiate the masses into Eastern mysticism. While Brian Wilson didn't know how to surf, Dennis Wilson, the only surfer of the bunch, would end up drowning drunk at sea. The Grateful Dead, who were first called the Warlocks before they changed their name, make it quite clear as to whose puppets they are. In the song Friend of the Devil, the Dead sing about borrowing from Satan and, quote, a friend of the devil is a friend of mine, and they talk about being trailed by 20 hounds. In their song Hell in a Bucket, they declare, quote, I may be going to hell, but at least I'm enjoying the ride. The sad thing is it appears that they're seeking to bring millions of their fans with them.